Russell Potter here, Motivo Academy, and in this video we're going to answer the question or explore a little bit further. Is Elon Musk a good leader? Is Elon Musk a good leader? Let's get into it. So you've seen the headlines recently, certainly over the past few months since Elon Musk purchased Twitter. You've seen a lot of headlines like this one here talking about Elon Musk's leadership style, and a lot of criticism of Elon Musk and his style. A lot of out there headlines talking about beds in the office, firing employees at will, and so on. So what I wanted to do in this video, as a leadership expert and executive coach myself, I've trained global leadership teams for a lot of the brands you've heard of. I want to unpack a little bit about what you're seeing with Elon Musk right now, and to unpack a little bit more about his leadership approach and style. Now, what I would say is, before we get into whether he's a good leader or not a good leader, what I would say is that essentially there are two broad categories of leadership in a very broad way: corporate leaders and entrepreneurs, and they are completely different. So on the one side you have the corporate leader, much more political. They have risen through the ranks, they have got alliances, they've done great jobs, they've proven themselves obviously. But they have essentially been promoted into that job and supported in their promotion into that role. Now, once they get to an executive level, they view the world through risk and avoiding risk, trying to grow the business where possible, but about sustainable growth, scaling, and minimizing risks to the operations of the business. This is typical executive leaders, and I coach a lot of executive leaders, and I can tell you that's how they think. But entrepreneurs are different. They haven't risen through the ranks. It's their baby. They own the business. Very often they're a founder of the business. So the leadership style with these guys is very, very different indeed. And that stays with them throughout their careers. In fact, you very often see that entrepreneurs and founders like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, for example, over at Google, eventually once they get past that startup stage and they get to a more mature stage of business, they often pass over the leadership of the business to somebody like Eric Schmidt in their case, to be the adult in the room, as he called it. And with Elon Musk, what you're seeing with his leadership style is very much the entrepreneurial style. Now, I'll put that in context for you because I've been an entrepreneur. I've started our business, I hired staff right from the get-go, and there is a completely different environment when you are a startup founder to when you are a corporate leader, and this is what you're seeing in his leadership style right now. When you're the founder of a business or you own the business, the stakes are just a lot higher for you personally. It's your baby. You are committed. You're going to be working 16 hours a day, if not more, 7 days a week for years. Bill Gates famously worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5 years to get Microsoft off the ground. I even wrote a book because I tried to emulate that when I owned a business. I even wrote a book on the investigation that I had and how he might have pulled that off in New Energized You, which I ended up writing with a neuropsychologist because I really didn't understand how you could work so hard for so long and maintain that level of energy without burning out. There are ways you can do that, it's all in the book. But you can see with Bill Gates, that's what he did, and I can see with Elon as well, from his time at, from his scaling, should say, and getting Tesla onto a really good track of sleeping on the production floor, at Twitter more recently, sleeping in the office. This is the level of commitment that you expect to see from a founder, from an entrepreneur, and they don't lose that. So when you start to see these insane hours, what looks like very erratic behavior, it's really not for an entrepreneur or a startup founder. That is de rigueur, if you like, of what's expected. You have to be committed all in. Now, the other side of that is that when you are committed to your business to that level, which you naturally are, it's your baby. When you're committed to that level and you see in those around you that you hire that they're not as committed. Emotionally, it will lead you to a place where you want to get rid of those people. It's just a fact. I've personally been there when I've seen people who don't seem to be particularly committed to the business, maybe are not showing the level of commitment and energy that I would expect. It burns. And the reason it burns is that when you're a startup founder, you're not paid. And this is something all of the startup founders and entrepreneurs watching this video will really get. In the first couple of years of your business, you're probably not going to be taking a salary. You're probably not paying yourself, but you might well be paying some staff, some admin staff, some expert staff, some professionals maybe that you've brought in to do a specific job for you. You will be paying those guys. At the same time, you're probably not paying yourself. You will eventually get paid. You will eventually get paid a salary, probably from whatever operational revenue or cash flow you can actually muster. But of course, you will have equity and stake in the business. So there's another way of getting paid later on, but that's much later on. So in that initial startup phase, you're not paying yourself, you're paying other people. It's your baby. You're committed to that business all in. You're working insane hours to get as much done as you can, which is what's needed when you've got a cash burn and a cash runway. You can see the type of leadership style that's required during that time, and it's going to be ruthless. You are going to be problem solving. You are going to be ruthless in your approach. You will be myopically focused, and arguably the likes of Bill Gates and certainly Elon, you can see a little bit of Asperger's in those guys. That means to say a myopic focus on one thing, being able to drill down and focus on that for a long period of time. So this is what you're seeing with Elon. And this is expected, frankly, of any entrepreneurial startup founder. And in the case of Twitter, what he's done is he's walked into a distressed asset. Make no mistake about the financials on Twitter. As you can see on screen now, these are not good numbers for a business, but they are absolutely distressed asset. Acquire the business, do the business turnaround, and either flip the business on or continue to operate it as a profitable business. This is a business that is heading to bankruptcy. Twitter was heading to bankruptcy. You can see this from the financials from before Elon joined. That return on capital employed and return on assets is appalling for a business. If I was a shareholder, I would be appalled by that. But Twitter seems to have become, over the past couple of years, more of an asset for the political class to use, and I can see they've become drunk at an executive level on that, rather than a business for shareholders. Well, that means it's primed for a takeover. It's exactly what Elon Musk has done. Aside from the moral reasons why he might have done that, in business terms, it's a distressed asset. But when it's a distressed asset, you're in the same predicament that you are when you're in a startup business. You have to get that business to positive cash flow. You have to get that business to stability, ready to be scaled as fast as possible. You do have no time to waste in this, because if you don't manage to turn it round, if you don't manage to get it to this stable growth phase, everyone in the business gets fired. So when we see Elon sleeping in the office, banning work from home, when we're seeing these what appear to be erratic behaviors, what we're actually seeing is exactly the kind of what's called emergency management that you see from situational leadership. Elon's often been described as a transformational leader. I would actually describe him probably more as an entrepreneurial problem solver more than anything else. There is definitely an element of visionary aspects to his style for sure, but transformational rather, that you can see for sure. But he can think massive, just like a lot of the other entrepreneurial startup founders that you've heard of, the Bill Gates of the world, as we said. But also you can see that he takes problems, large problems, and tries to solve those problems. This is his key aspect. So I would say he's more like that. What I would also say is that he uses a situational style. He might not know that, but a situational leadership style, if you watched this channel or you've done one of my courses, you'll know what that is essentially where you have different situations. Some are emergency situations, and other situations where maybe there's a little bit less stress and pressure on the situation, and the people that you're dealing with are maybe a little bit more experienced and capable. And in an emergency situation, the people that you're dealing with may not know how to solve that problem, and most importantly, the situation is an emergency. Get out of the burning building right now, there's no time to explain, kind of thing. When you're in an emergency situation, it's advisable to be more directive. It doesn't mean to say that you don't take into account the expert opinions of those around you. Of course you do, that's critical decision making. But it does mean to say that you need to take responsibility and be more directive. And this is more like military leadership in a combat situation, definitely not in a training situation, but in a combat situation, you would have to be very directive in your approach, so that people follow what you're saying with commitment. And of course, you have to know what you're doing. You do have to be the expert. What we're seeing with Elon at the moment in Twitter is using more of that emergency style. And quite frankly, given the financials and the fact that it is a candidate for bankruptcy, despite the investment that's just been made, that might well be the correct style for that time. Now, will that be the correct style moving forwards? Probably not. As Google found when they had scaled their business and they had found some degree of stability, then that style doesn't cut it anymore. Then you need to change. Elon himself in a recent couple of weeks has said that he will find a new CEO. But that's a transition. That's going to take him a good few months to find the right person. And by that time, he should have stabilized the business. So everything you're seeing right now is actually very good leadership, considering the situation and considering his experience of leadership as an entrepreneurial founder. It's exactly what you would expect to see in that situation. In situations like this, I know a lot of leaders, a lot of people would like to say, well, why can't he be a little bit more empathetic? Why can't he be a little bit more, touchy-feely, if you like? That doesn't cut it in leadership. I'm sorry to break this to everyone watching this, thinking that emotional intelligence is really a thing and that it's actually important for leadership. To a degree it is, but it's definitely not top 10. The most important things in leadership is that people trust that you know what you're doing with the operational side of the business, the management aspects. Do they trust you as a manager? Do they trust you to maintain their salary because you can run that business and the operations of that business for sustainable long-term success? The touchy-feely stuff comes second. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it's actually a fact. Now, if you've done one of my courses, you'll know that I see leadership in terms of really 4 things. Number 1, vision and direction. Do you have a strong vision and direction? Number 2, do you know the territory? Number 3, do you know the followers? Do you know what they're capable of, how far they can go, the skills and abilities that they have, and what their weaknesses are, and what they can't do? Do you know those things? This is important. And finally, trust and respect. Do they trust and respect you as a leader so that they will follow you through anything? And what you're seeing at the moment in Twitter is Elon, with his knowledge of the territory, with his vision for how he sees Twitter in the future, not knowing the people, I should say, at Twitter very well, and in a very short space of time having to get to know who knows what, who's good, who's not. He's bringing in his own people from Tesla because he does know their strengths and weaknesses. So he's plugging that gap of knowing his followers. He's losing a lot of the people that he thinks he can't trust and that he doesn't know. So he clearly is working out who his followers are. And trust and respect. This comes with results. You have to show through results that you know what you're doing. And ultimately, that's how he will be judged. So on balance, on the whole, I know a lot of people probably won't want to hear this, but actually I think Elon is a good leader. He is certainly in this respect. Would he be a good business continuity leader for a much more established business? Possibly not, but it depends on what stage that business is at. Sometimes businesses need a shake-up. Sometimes they need a little bit more of that charisma power in there as well. But what I would say is that given the situation at Twitter, I think actually he's probably doing the right thing. Because ultimately with a company that's in a distressed situation like that, you have to do a turnaround. Unfortunately, you can't pandy to, you know, the lowest common denominator and also media pressure. So you may disagree, and I'd love you to disagree. I'd love you to share your comments in the comments section below. But I wanted to share my take as a leadership expert on Elon Musk and reacting to some of the headlines that I've seen recently regarding what he's doing. And just in summary, once again, there's corporate leaders and there's entrepreneurial leaders. He's an entrepreneurial style leader, problem solving leader. All I see him doing right now is exercising that style of leadership as is appropriate to that stage that Twitter is currently at. They were put into that stage by other leaders who frankly were a little bit more corporate, more political, and have steered Twitter into that position. And I think he's turning it around right now. History will tell whether he's successful at that, but that's my take. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if this is the kind of content and valuable information that helps you to get perspective on leadership. Fast track your own leadership and become a leader yourself. Play that game. Head over to the Motivo Academy, where I have courses on leadership from my 25 years of leadership training and development experience and coaching experience, where you can learn everything you need to learn to be a great leader, so you can lead your own business, either being promoted or even as a startup founder, as an entrepreneur. It's worth knowing the terminology of leadership. It's worth understanding the tactics and strategies of leadership and informing yourself so that you can be a great leader in the future and you're more in a position to critique other people's leadership too. So thanks again for watching. I hope you found that valuable. I'll do some more videos of Elon Musk and other great leaders. So please remember to subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.